Hello everybody, how nice of you to join me. In this video, I'll be sewing the ultimate 1940s style summer outfit of my dreams that doubles as a playsuit and a sundress. This summer is being very tropical indeed. In other words, constant torrential rain and disgusting humidity. So I simply must console myself by making something bright and sunny looking. So, let's begin. My plan was a one-piece playsuit with a matching skirt that would transform it into a dress, as shown in these vintage illustrations. The first thing to do was finding a suitable fabric. I really wanted a print, preferably something tropical, and was hoping for either pink, green or yellow, as those are the colors I'd like more of in my wardrobe. After some searching, I really struck the jackpot with this truly gorgeous pink and green tropical flower print, which was far better than anything I'd imagined I'd find. It was a little on the sheer side, so I briefly considered swapping it for a similar, sturdier cotton print, but ultimately it was just too pretty, so I simply had to take it. I do not have a playsuit sewing pattern, but you know what they say, limitation breeds creativity. I plan to extend one of my bikini top patterns and attach it to the shorts of Simplicity S8932. After looking through several patterns, I decided on View C of Simplicity 1426, mainly because I've made it before and therefore didn't have to cut out the pattern. This was years ago, so I could not for the life of me recall whether the pattern was easy or complicated to sew. I wanted to make this front section and the two back pieces longer to create the playsuit's bodice. I drafted extended versions of the front and back sections I showed earlier onto some paper to make a mock-up, but to be really honest with you, I had no clue what I was doing and everything I did was a wild guess. The skirt was nowhere near as complicated as the playsuit. I used Simplicity 8654, which is just a simple gathered A-line skirt. Here's the mock-up so far. With this being a rather experimental project, I needed to make a mock-up, which, if everything went well, I could reuse as the playsuit's lining. First, I sewed the bra section as normal and then attached the extended bodice parts, which were far too long, but that's why I made a mock-up. Next, I sewed the shorts, making sure to put the opening at the back instead of the side to match the bodice. Then came the awkward task of connecting the top and bottom, for which I had to pin the bodice to me using clothes pegs, since I had neither straps nor a zipper. To make the top the right length, I pinned where both pieces met, and cut off the excess. As you can see, this was a terribly fussy task. After far longer than you'd think, the front was ready to sew, but the back was too difficult to see, so I just guessed where to cut and pin it. Fingers crossed! This was the finished playsuit mock-up. I thought it looked quite nice, and was a little sad it had to be hidden away as a lining. I could now use this mock-up to improve and alter my drafted extended bodice pattern pieces. The one problem I saw with the mock-up was that there were too many separate pieces of fabric to sew together, which would make matching the playsuit's flower print practically impossible. To combat this, I combined the bodice and short sections into one, to hopefully preserve the fabric's print as much as possible. Think these two illustrations where the fabric is barely interrupted, rather than here where a print would be harder to match. Truthfully, I was dreading cutting into this fabric. Not only is it the most gorgeous fabric I've ever owned, there were less than 2 meters of it, and I had to make sure all pattern pieces would fit. Icy was not having it. This is her way of saying, hurry up with this so we can finally play fetch outside. But look at this fabric! One wrong cut and that's it! Sorry Icy, I'll get on with it. To my relief, all the pattern pieces seem to fit onto the fabric nicely. Since the fabric's print has a one-way design, I had to make sure all pieces were facing in the right direction, and I made an effort to match the print as well as possible at the center front seam for a continuous final look. The occasion I was initially planning to sew this outfit for was a 3-day music engagement on an island, which was by far the most exciting gig I've booked yet. However, due to all the tropical storms I was complaining about at the start of this video, the event was cancelled, just as I was cutting into this fantastic fabric. I wasn't able to match the print for all the playsuit pieces, unfortunately, as that would have taken up too much fabric that I still needed. But what can you do? I ended up with a decently sized fabric remnant, with which I could have made Ice a matching dress, but something tells me she wouldn't have appreciated it.
I love you!
Instead, I planned to turn the leftover fabric into a headscarf and a hair ribbon that I could wear with the rest of the ensemble. One last look at this glorious fabric. Okay, sorry. Time to start sewing.
I'm so confused, I don't understand anything. I actually don't get it. What am I doing? I'm panicking.
In hindsight, that is very funny. But I'll admit that at the time of making this playsuit, I was feeling rather lost. The first thing I did was sew the center front seam of the combined bodice and shorts sections, and for some reason the machine kept laddering the fabric as shown here. Are there any seamstresses watching that could tell me what might be causing this so I can travel back in time and fix it? Anyway, once I did the same for the back sections, it was time to put together the bust pieces. Sometimes the darts matched up nicely with the fabric, like here, and sometimes they didn't. To really tie this look together, I added the decorative trim detail from Simplicity 1426, and just like that, the bust section was ready to be attached onto the playsuit's front. I pinned both pieces together, making sure to have both center seams lining up perfectly, and sewed them in place. Excuse me, how on earth did this happen? I was absolutely sure I did everything correctly.
Huh?
Oh well, time to admit defeat and get out my trusty old seam ripper. I would have had to redo that seam anyway, because as I was sewing it, I noticed that the front bodice section was far too long and needed a chop. Now to pin the pieces together again, only this time 1,000 times more carefully. That's more like it. Then I sewed the side seams and tried the playsuit on. Not an ideal fit, however it was still missing several components, so it was hard to say. The next step was attaching the lining, my mock-up from earlier. I was very pleased with how it turned out. The lining made the playsuit look so neat and professional. For the back closure, I put in a long zipper and sewed it on by hand, because that's more fun even if it took way longer. Around this time, I was happy to learn that I would have another chance to perform on the island that I mentioned earlier in this video. It was 1 day instead of 3, but honestly, I was just glad I would have a suitable occasion to wear this outfit to after all. Time for another try on. I would definitely have to add some darts under the bust for a better fit, even if it might mess up the fabric's print, and I of course still had to hem the legs. But before that, I made the playsuit's shoulder straps, which were nice and straightforward. I used the pattern S3150 for them, instead of the original bikini top's halter neck, which I tend to find rather uncomfortable. In true Melina fashion, by the time I was sewing the straps onto the playsuit, it was already the day before the boat set sail for the island, because it's not one of my sewing projects without an impossible deadline looming around the corner. Last of all, I put a pair of darts into the playsuit's bodice, unfortunate but necessary, and hemmed the shorts. Then I am proud to say, my playsuit was completed. To turn my playsuit into a sundress, I needed to make a skirt of the same fabric. Luckily, creating this garment didn't require any fussy pattern drafting or a mock-up, since I was using a tried-and-true sewing pattern, Simplicity 8654. My sewing machine is rather old and has recently been refusing to change its stitch length and tension, and because I respect my elders, I let it be and sewed all the gathers by hand. This skirt had a lot of gathers, but I did find the process quite fun and relaxing. Then I arranged the gathers to fit and sewed them into the waistband, which I did off camera as I was simply too tired. For the button at the side, I chose a cool-toned green to match the leaves on the fabric. The next morning, a mere 2 hours before the boat's departure, I sewed the skirt's hem, having pressed and pinned it the night before. Then everything got a quick ironing. I didn't have time to try on the full ensemble, so this would have to do. Here is the finished skirt. A certain someone insisted on being in the shot every single time. But as he is unfathomably cute and handsome, he can do no wrong in my eyes. The last thing to do was pack my creations into my suitcase and pray that they wouldn't wrinkle on the journey. What a view! The ideal setting for modeling this ensemble. And here it is, my dream 1940s summer outfit. A lovely bright sundress in a charming tropical print that also doubles as a playsuit. Just the thing to wear while playing. Comfortable, practical, and fashionable. On goes the skirt again. And it's a dress! Anyway, here is some of my solo music set. Nowadays, every dance academy exercise your whole anatomy to it. It came from the canal zone, on fire gal zone. What fever that rages? Look out, it's contagious. I've got to be honest, this was the most awkward performance of my career so far. Instead of a stage, I was singing in the doorway of a restaurant during the busy lunch rush, so people kept having to squeeze past me mid-song. The whole time I felt like I was standing right in everyone's way. Because I was. But that's showbiz, baby. I would show you some of our band's performance, which was far more fun, but all the videos I took were like this. After the island engagement, all that was left to do was making some matching accessories out of the fabric scraps. This long piece I saved was to be made into a hair ribbon. A hair ribbon is very easy to make. Just sew two long rectangles together, leaving a small section open to turn the ribbon inside out. When it's inside out, or rather right side out, press, and then sew the open section closed, taking care to make the stitches as invisible as possible. That's it! This large fabric remnant became a headscarf. This was my first time making one, but it turned out to be quite easy, for it pretty much is just a square of fabric with very small hems. At this point I was sick of sitting at the machine, so I sewed the hems by hand. And there we are! I am very proud of how this outfit turned out. I couldn't have found a prettier fabric, and I hope I did it justice. I had a vision and I made it happen, even if it meant all that complicated pattern drafting, which I've got to say I can't believe I managed to figure out. I put so much work and effort into this, and I think it's my best sewing yet. The only thing I'm not entirely happy with is that there is a little too much extra fabric under the bust, and bringing it in a bit would improve the playsuit's fit. But other than that, I am so pleased with it. I love a matching set, especially with the extra hair accessories, and I know I'll be wearing this every summer from now on. And that's all. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.